Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Sustaining Sustainability. I'm your host, CB Bhattacharya, Professor and Director of the Center for Sustainable Business at the University of Pittsburgh. Today, it is my great delight to say that I'm joined from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, by Leslie S. Hyde, the Senior Vice President and Chief Sustainability Officer for Koppers Inc, a global provider of treated wood products, carbon compounds, and chemicals. Koppers is committed to reducing its Scope 1 and 2 greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by 2030 and are on track with a 48.2% reduction over a 2007 baseline. As of 2021, 5 of their products by revenue are produced by a majority recycled, reused, or renewable materials with a goal of 100% sustainable wood procurement by 2025. Last year, Koppers was ranked as one of the most responsible companies by Newsweek for the second year in a row. Leslie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, CB. Thanks for having me.
Terrific to have you. Leslie, as we get started, could you talk to us about Koppers' purpose statement, in quotes, protecting what matters, preserving the future, end quote. What does that mean to you personally, and how does it influence your day-to-day work?
Well, protecting what matters and preserving the future is intended to convey that what we do now impacts the future. So we should be very intentional about our actions today. And we truly believe that when you protect the things that matter most, our employees, our communities, our environment, we are better able to secure Koppers' future and help, impact the world for the better. So this philosophy has influenced our path to greater sustainability results by recognizing that central importance of people, planet, and performance in everything we do. And it's a constant reminder that we're in service of something bigger than ourselves. It also helps to communicate to employees that their role is connected to the larger strategy of the company so that they feel empowered to help us improve. And gaining that involvement and participation of team members is something that we work on every day.
That's terrific. You mentioned in your 2021 report that you're shifting from measuring and goal setting to holding yourselves accountable to those goals. How are you working with your stakeholders during this implementation phase?
Mostly we're working with our internal stakeholders at this point. And for us, that starts at the top, the board of directors. So our board of directors formed a sustainability committee in 2020 to recognize and to provide oversight for this important topic. So they're very involved in understanding what we're doing and supporting and advising us. At the next level down is our leadership council, which is what we call our top senior executives. They are the decision-making body for sustainability. And so all the groups underneath them that are working on sustainability will bring decisions up to the leadership council for a decision. And that demonstrates leadership's involvement in the process, which we think is really important. Also, our 3 members of our leadership council lead groups within the sustainability structure of our company. And again, it's that hands-on approach from the senior management to convey how important this is to the company. Then we wanted to bring this concept of sustainability into the company kind of from the ground up. And so what we have done is we've involved a lot of employees, and we've done that by forming cross-functional teams around each of our material topics. And those teams went out and researched the topic and researched what Koppers was doing now and came up with recommendations that we can do to impact each of those material topics. And those are forming our goals. So those recommendations were brought to the Leadership Council, and and approved. And we just recently, at our Global Leadership Conference in March, introduced those to the company as a whole. And so now we have a set of sustainability goals that has been formed, from various stakeholders within the company. And the company can now focus on where we want to go from the sustainability perspective.
Sounds like a really strong governance structure, which is just quite incredible. Now, Koppers has set several, in quotes, zero harm goals in your sustainability plan. Why did Koppers choose zero harm as the way to frame the sustainability targets?
The concept of zero harm arose out of our safety programs. And it was meant to convey that we would work hard to keep our employees safe, that no number other than zero was acceptable when it came to injuries to our employees. And so that's where the concept of zero harm came from. And gradually, we incorporated that same concept across other facets of materiality. So, we have the safety and health of our employees, but we also have the safety of our neighbors and our communities. And so that's the people component of our sustainability strategy. But zero harm also applies to environmental issues. So it means mitigating or eliminating our impact on the environment through emissions reduction, responsible use or reuse of water, waste minimization or waste elimination, and other greenhouse gas reduction, those types of things that impact our planet. And so we're expanding that concept of zero harm beyond just safety to other parts of sustainability, and we're really trying to work hard to instill that ethos of doing no harm into our culture.
That's really impressive. Now, turning to the environmental side of things, you've made a lot of progress on scopes 1 and 2. How are you approaching that last 2% in the next 7 years? And how is your approach on scope 1 and 2 similar or different from how you're approaching scope 3 reductions?
So scope 1 and 2, those are the things that we control as a company. So we're at about 49% reduction since our baseline in 2007 for scope 1 and 2. So just a little bit to go. Now, that last percent or two is always the hardest to get. So what we're doing is focusing on reduction in energy use. We're doing that through energy audits, installing energy management systems so that we can find ways to reduce our energy use. And we're also focusing on renewable energy. So in 2022, we had several solar projects become operational to increase our renewable energy consumption, and we have a couple more planned for 2023. Now, we don't think solar energy is going to be the end solution for Koppers, but it's a start. And we have a team, one of those cross-functional employee teams, working to look at other ways that we can incorporate renewable energy. And then, of course, just training on climate change and impact reduction, and why it's important that we try to reduce energy so that our employees understand what we're doing. Now, in scope 3, we just started on scope 3. We just conducted our first scope 3 screening using 2021 as a baseline. And scope 3 is always more complex because we have to deal with the upstream and the downstream partners of Koppers. So what we did was we leveraged an online evaluator tool called Quantus to get us the first approximation of our scope 3 footprint. And based on what we find there, we'll look at how we can move forward. So we're currently reviewing those results, and we need to work on determining our next steps.
Very cool, very cool. I mentioned earlier that 75% of Koppers products are circular in some capacity. Could you tell us why circularity is important to your sustainability plan?
So 75% is actually, it's 75% by revenue. 75% of our products by revenue use renewable raw materials. So that's the front end of circularity. We're trying to reuse materials rather than use virgin materials. So I want to start maybe with a little history lesson here. So Koppers was actually founded in the early 1900s by a German engineer by the name of Heinrich Koppers, and thus the name Koppers. And Heinrich Koppers worked in the steel industry, and what he saw was that in the coke manufacturing process, there was a waste that came off that process, a liquid waste that wasn't being used for anything, and it was just disposed. And so he came up with a process taking that waste and reusing it to create other products, other useful products. And so that was the genesis of the Koppers company. And so I always say that circularity is in our DNA. We still use that process today in some of our products. The company has expanded and we have other product lines. And so we work on circularity in those product lines also. We reuse a lot of our waste and scrap materials. We use recycled copper in some of our wood preservation materials. Again, we use the material from the coke manufacturing process. We're working on using more sustainably sourced wood for our wood products. And on the back end, from a circularity perspective, we're looking at ways to reuse our products at the end of their life. And one of the best examples of that we have right now is in our railroad group. So they sell railroad ties, which when you preserve a wooden railroad tie, its lifespan goes from about 5 years up to about 35 or 40 years. So that in and of itself is a good sustainability story, but they eventually come out of service and you have to do something with them. And so what we are doing is collecting those ties, and we are researching a way to reuse them. So right now we're using them as fuel, replacing fossil fuels. But we have our R&D group looking at other ways to use them, maybe as a biomass or a biofuel type of a process. So that's ongoing.
And if I may follow up, then what is your approach to increasing circularity in your products? What's the plan going forward? Do you see yourself as 95%, 100% circular in your operations?
So we actually have not set a goal around that. Our R&D, our research and development folks are always looking at new products and looking at the environmental footprint of those products and how we can make things last longer and be able to be reused at the end of their life. So it's a really long-term perspective you have to take on this, because you have to, when you're redesigning products, that's taking time on the front end so that you have a back end option, sometime in the future. So, we're looking at it. We have not set a goal around it, but it certainly is driving, the thought processes of our R&D staff.
Okay. Now, turning to another challenging area for sustainability, which is communication. Communicating sustainability is a big theme for the Center for Sustainable Business this year. Could you tell us a little bit about how you approach, writing and communicating your sustainability report to have an impact on your customers and your investors?
So we see communication in a couple ways. It's important for us to communicate internally and externally. And so starting with internally, we do a lot of communication to the company through videos, through WebExes, through live training. We have a SharePoint site set up for resources for sustainability. We constantly talking about it and trying to find ways to engage our workforce in what we're doing. So we think that's really important. Externally, we've been producing a corporate sustainability report since 2003. Now, the first one was only 8 pages long, and I think this year's is closer to 80 pages. But gradually, we have been improving the way we communicate externally. So our sustainability report is organized around the 3 pillars, what we consider the 3 pillars of sustainability: people, planet, and performance. And it's organized around our material topics. So we talk about each one of our material impacts and what our goals are around them, and what our metrics are, and how we are performing. We do report to GRI. We report to SASB. We are getting ready to report to the European standard, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. We're getting ready for the SEC to come out with their new rules around reporting Scope 3 emissions. So we're trying to stay ahead of what the regulations require of us to report. But really, it's about trying to get information out there in the best way possible. So we do try to organize it around our material topics so people can see what's important to us and they can see what we're doing about those topics.
Thank you for that. And this is a fascinating conversation, but unfortunately, we are coming to the close of our time. Let me ask you one last question, which we ask all our guests. What call to action would you make to our listeners?
So I think I would say that sustainability is everybody's responsibility. Companies are doing their part, working on sustainability plans and all the things I've just talked about. But each one of us can impact this area also. The biggest emitter of greenhouse gases is the transportation sector. And so, that's us all driving our cars. So, can we can't all afford to buy an electric car, but can we take the bus, or can we walk, or can we ride our bike? Can we turn off our lights when we leave the room? What can we do to reduce energy use, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions? Because it's going to take all of us to solve this climate change issue, and all of us have a part to play.
Excellent. Thank you. Leslie Hyde, thank you so much for taking some of your precious time and spending it with us today.
You're welcome.
And before we sign off, my name is Kristen P. Ahern, and I'm the producer and editor of Sustaining Sustainability. I want to tell you about our next event on June 8th, where Professor Jennifer Smokelin of the University of Pittsburgh and a partner at Reed Smith will present a framework for navigating climate regulations for small and medium businesses. Head to bit.ly/climatesmb, all lowercase, all one word, for more information, or check the show notes. We also want to hear from you. Let us know your thoughts in our podcast survey. Go to bit.ly/CSB pod survey, all lowercase, all one word. The link is also in the show notes. This podcast is made by the Center for Sustainable Business at the University of Pittsburgh, directed by CB Bhattacharya. It is made possible by all our member companies. To learn more about our upcoming programs or about becoming a member, please go to our website or follow us at PittCSB on all social platforms. And if you liked this episode, please share it with a friend or colleague, since word of mouth is the best way for us to grow. And we'll see you soon for another episode of Sustaining Sustainability.